Is there still a battle between your industry and the actual MD people? Like, would you ever get a referral from an MD because a client went into their primary care physician and kept complaining about pain and joints? And do you see them just prescribing, pharmaceuticals to alleviate that, or will they actually bring you up and say, you ought to go talk to Dr. Razvi? And is there still a battle between science, as far as the medical field goes? Are y'all still battling it out, or have y'all come together yet? Like, how's that going?
It sounds like you've been doing some reading on
Yeah.
the history of osteopathic medicine. So yes, there had been in the past a lot more rivalry between MDs and DOs. I would say now that there's much more research that's been done in terms of how does osteopathic manipulation work, who does it work for, which conditions is it good for, what's actually going on, do people get long-term benefit or is it just short-term? I can tell you after having read tons and tons of research on different diagnoses and different patient populations that osteopathic medicine does work. I can break that down for any specific condition. There are usually randomized controlled trials and lots of different science behind the manipulations that we do that does show both safety and efficacy. So it's safe to get the treatment. You're not going to cause more harm necessarily if you do it properly,
Yeah.
and you'll get benefit, short-term, long-term, everything in between.
Right.
So yes, I do get referrals from the physicians, whether they're MDs or DOs, who are familiar with that kind of research. They say, yes, I want to prescribe the best kind of treatments for my patients. And they may or may not know about the research that's been done about osteopathic medicine. And so part of my job is to also help to disseminate some of that information. So maybe some of your listeners are physicians themselves or in the healthcare field. Now they may know a little bit more about osteopathic practice and how it is science-based for several different conditions.
I just hope that, when people come in to their family doctor and they say, doc, I want to relieve this pain, but I don't want to be dependent on the medicines that you might have prescribed to others in the past that I've heard such bad things about, and I'd like an alternative. And then they talk about what you offer, or they actually get them, instead of over prescribing and over diagnosing things that equal people on more medicine. I think, bringing you in the mix is just a wise move for the greater public health if you can solve their problems. I
think you used great words there. In the mix is exactly what I'd like to be. And so I would call myself complementary rather than alternative. I would say that anyone can still take all of the medicines that they would like. They can do any kind of therapy that they're looking for and still do osteopathic therapy at the same time.
Yeah.
It could be that their kind of problem is going to benefit most from a multi-pronged approach, which is my strategy anyway. And in fact, if someone comes to me, maybe, they haven't tried certain medicines, which I think are going to help them. I'm okay with prescribing medicines too, if I think that it's going to get them over a hump, if it's going to improve their healing process. I am totally for it for short term.
Hey, I am a pain wimp. If I can get past a short term spike in pain and know that working through the treatment that I'm coming to you for, and I'm going to be able to ease kind of numb that pain or ease off that spike in pain for the short term, knowing that I've got these long term solutions that I'm working on, I certainly want you to do that. I certainly would want you to keep me comfortable while we're working through this thing. So that's very interesting to me because, I've gotten some friends in the field, and I know, just being observant in my life that, there at one point there was a complete battle of this type of medicine being like, taboo almost, So like, I'm glad that it's coming. I'm glad that we're able to, help people with alternatives to the normal prescribing of all these pharmaceuticals that are going out that we hear about that are kind of wrecking people's lives in some ways sometimes. So
especially in Southwest Virginia, there's a big problem with opiates for sure. People are addicted to them, and they unfortunately haven't had other types of treatments, right?
Yeah.
It's I think a consequence of physicians not knowing that there are other types of treatments other than prescription medicines. And so, yes, I would say that, if you go to your primary care doctor, there's a good chance that they may not know about osteopathic treatments. And so it would be up to that patient individually to say, hey, do you know of any osteopathic doctors that I might be able to go to as an alternative?
Speaking of, the New River Valley and my major affection of it, I want to know why you decided to start your practice in Blacksburg. I know you went to school, you finished your school here, right? You could have went anywhere in the country to do your service, and you probably could be making a little bit more money in higher population areas. So I love these stories, and I'm excited to hear your answer, but I want to know why you decided that Blacksburg was the place for you.
I would say the community was super welcoming. That was probably the number one thing. I felt accepted. I felt like I wasn't, I was just given the resources that I needed to do what I needed to do. So, for example, with the Chamber of Commerce here in Montgomery County, they really had a bunch of mentors who helped to make establishing the business relatively easy. My neighbors, for example, where I live in Blacksburg, have been super supportive. The community itself, when I have had patients, they're very helpful in terms of getting the word out and telling all the people that they know. The word of mouth has been a huge referral source for me.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I would say it's the environment. I love the four seasons that we have, the outdoors, the nature, the hiking, the wildlife. All of that really drew me in compared to where I grew up in New Jersey and New York. It's way different in terms of traffic and parking. And so I decided to settle into a more peaceful area where I felt welcomed.
So you like the pace, you like the community, you like the opportunity that I don't think this area has a lot of what you're providing. So, as an entrepreneur, you might have seen also opportunity to get into a space and be maybe one of the first ones to the space, right? Like, do you see a lot of competition around you in your field right now, in your business?
There are, so I am specifically an out-of-network physician. That means that I don't participate with the insurance companies because I want to spend more time with my patients.
Yeah.
And if I was part of the insurance model, then I would be able to spend no more than 30 minutes with a patient at most. And even then, it would be a real challenge, both for me and for the patient, to make that work.
Yeah.
Because I think that healing takes time. Right?
Yeah.
I can't force a body to heal. I'm not the healer. I am just a medium that helps the patient to understand what it is about their body that's going wrong and what kinds of stimulation it needs or what kinds of influences the body needs to heal itself. And that is just foreign to the insurance company. So I decided to separate myself from the insurance companies, and it allows the patients to still use their insurance as out-of-network benefits. So my patients still do get some reimbursement or at least application towards their deductible. And so there are other doctors who are doing that. They're doing osteopathic manipulation within the insurance model. Those are in Blacksburg as well. And so my model is slightly different as an out-of-network doc. And so I wouldn't see it as direct competition. I would say that, it's my services are for a different type of population, people that are really interested in spending the time to understand what's going on, hitting it hard early on, getting the visits in back to back, with usually once a week for 3 weeks, and making that long-term progress. Plus, I have more availability in terms of cell phone, email, and other contact methods that it's really hard to do when you're still within the insurance model. And so that's why I would say I'm not exactly in competition with other folks who are in Blacksburg. There are other folks who are in Roanoke. There's at least one doctor who I know who's doing osteopathic treatments out there. But I don't know if she's still taking new patients.
Right.